Okay, let's take a look at exercise 4-4. We're given information for Drone Unlimited, selling price, variable expenses, contribution margin. Total expenses $100,000 per month, and they sell 1,000 drones per month. So in part 1, the marketing manager argues that a $5,000 increase in the monthly budget to prepare webinars would increase monthly sales by 50 drones. So should they proceed? So you're going to increase their expense, but you're also going to increase sales. So let's take a look. All right. So the long way. Currently, they're selling 1,000 units. The price is $1,000 per unit, so their sales are $1 million. Variable expenses are $800 per unit, so variable expenses are $800,000, which means their contribution margin is $200,000. We're told their fixed expenses are $100,000, which leaves them with an operating income of $100,000. With the new proposal, they would sell 50 more units, so 1,050. Same selling price, same variable expenses, which would give them a contribution margin of $210,000. But there's going to be a $5,000 increase to their monthly budget to prepare webinars. So their fixed expenses would increase by $5,000, and this would leave them with an operating income of $105,000. So if we look at the difference, selling 50 more units, the difference in sales, $50,000, difference in variable expenses, $40,000. So their contribution margin would be an increase of 10. Their fixed expenses would increase by $5,000, which would leave them with an increase in operating income of $5,000, which we can see. So yes, because their income is going to increase, they should proceed. Now this is a cumbersome and longer way of doing it. Here's an alternative. So under the new proposal, there's a contribution margin of $200 per unit, and the sales would be 1,050 units. So their new contribution margin would be $210,000. Currently, their contribution margin is $200 per unit at 1,000 units. So their current contribution margin is $200,000, which would give them an incremental contribution margin of $10,000, but their fixed expenses are going to increase by 5. So we subtract that to get a change in operating income of $5,000. So as you can see here, the 210, slide up a bit, is the contribution margin here. The 200,000 is in the original plan, increases by 10. Fixed expenses increase by 5, which leaves them with an increase of $5,000 to income. So this is all shown here, but in a much more condensed version. We can actually do it even shorter, because up here we're taking the contribution margin and we're multiplying it. Here's the new one, here's less the old one. But the difference is 50 units. So instead of saying, under the new proposal we would have this, under the old proposal we would have that, we can just take that 50 units and multiply them by the $200 contribution margin per unit, and it will be $10,000. And like above, you subtract your increase in your advertising expenses to have an increase in your operating income of $5,000. Now part 2, it says refer to the original data. So we're going to go back as if we didn't do anything in part 1. Management is considering using higher quality components that would increase the variable cost by $80 per unit. The marketing manager believes this would increase sales by 15% per month. So if we increase our variable cost by $80 per unit, it's going to be $880 here, which would leave our contribution margin as $120. We're increasing sales by 15%, so they were 1,000 units, and now we're increasing them by 15%. So let's go back to the solution. So again, expected contribution margin with the new proposal, we'd sell more units, so 1,000 units with a 15% increase would be 1,150, so we'd have more units, but each unit is going to earn $80 less contribution margin, so it's 120 per unit, which gives us 138,000. Currently, we're selling less units. We're selling 1,000 units, but the contribution margin per unit is higher. It's 200. So our current contribution margin is 200,000. So the change is we're reducing our contribution margin by 62,000. So assuming that fixed costs are going to stay the same, we don't want to take on this proposal. We would have less income under this new proposed way.